My name's Daisy Jones. I'm a senior associate in the employment team at Fox Williams. In April this year, we had the first deadline for companies who have over 250 kind of in-scope employees to publish some of their pay data, which goes to gender pay gap. So that's information in relation to the gender pay gap around hourly salary and bonus payments, as well as your organisation's demographic in terms of where how many women and men you have sitting in each of your 4 pay quartiles within the structure as well. We've had information in from about 10,000 employers now, and of the employers we've had reports from, about 78% of them have gender pay gaps. The national mean gender pay gap that we have is coming out at about 9.7%. Unsurprisingly, in financial services, it's quite a lot higher, and their mean gender pay gap is about 36%. I don't think people would be that surprised that financial services has that sort of gap. You know, I think reputationally it's known as an industry that's still got a lot of more senior men earning a lot more perhaps than kind of where traditionally you would have lower remunerated roles filled by more women or men and women. So I think in financial services you might have a few men at the very top of the organisation who earn an awful lot of money, and that can distort the whole organisation's gender pay gap. I think there's a little bit of confusion in some of the dialogue around what gender pay might mean and what equal pay might mean. And I think partly that's sort of how it's reported in the press, where kind of fairly blunt terms are used. So what a gender pay gap shows is the difference in rates of pay for men and women in a particular organisation. When we think about equal pay, what we're thinking about is men and women who are paid differently where they're performing the same job, a similar sort of job or work of equal value. So you might have an organisation that has a gender pay gap but doesn't necessarily have issues around equal pay or other sex discrimination practices. And that, for example, might be driven by the fact that they have more men sitting in higher earning roles compared with women. And that's not necessarily a question of equal pay. Where equal pay comes in, as I say, is where you have a man and a woman performing the same role or a role of equal value, and the man is paid at a higher rate of pay than the woman in that circumstance. You also traditionally tend to have more women who work flexibly or part-time because, again, traditionally women still have that sort of primary care responsibility within a family unit. And there also tends to be quite a big gap when we look at the amount of bonuses that are paid to men and women, and that's part of what the gender pay reporting shows, is that the bonus gap is big, and in many organisations bigger than the salary gap. So there will be perhaps pay structures and practices in relation to bonus awards that, for whatever reason, are disproportionately impacting on women when compared to male comparators. So when we think about closing the gender pay gap, it's obviously not a very easy question to answer. People are thinking quite hard about it, but there are a number of steps an organisation might try and think about taking. One thing that we're increasingly seeing companies giving more thought to and actually introducing is the use of targets. It's quite a divisive topic and some people feel very strongly about it, but we are at least seeing the use of maybe soft targets would be how you could describe them. So companies will express an aspirational goal or an ambition to achieve sort of gender equality in senior roles and at senior management by a particular date. In addition to using targets, some employers will also think about steps they can take to encourage women specifically into senior roles. So you might see the use of mentoring programs, sponsorship schemes, perhaps specific training that's put in place to try and kind of coach and draw along the promotion path the female talent that's been identified in the business. Another thing that employers are thinking about, for reasons not just related to gender pay, is the use of agile working, because again, if we recognise that in our society still women tend to be the primary carers in the family unit, thinking about what practices you might put in place regarding agile working, so job sharing, flexible working, working remotely, those sorts of steps might also help to encourage women to kind of come through into more senior roles, particularly where that agile working practice is adopted at kind of higher levels in the organisation as well as in the more junior positions. Another thing, if we think about the fact that some companies have quite big bonus gaps, as I said before, there's obviously something that might be happening when bonuses are awarded. Typically, there's some kind of discretion that might be exercised when you're making a bonus payment. So I think for companies to think about how those bonuses are awarded, what the parameters are around them. Is there anything in the mechanism or the discretion that's being exercised that might be impacting its female staff in a way that's maybe not appropriate? And that might be completely unconscious, but it's just giving some further thought to those mechanics and making sure that people are rewarded appropriately and in line with what they've been doing and the performance they've given, and trying to remove any sort of conscious or probably more likely unconscious gender barriers that are having an impact.